can hear me.
Yes, yes. So as I'm talking with Danielle, if any of you in our live audience has questions, make sure to ask your questions in the stream, and we will try to get to them during the show today. So today we are going to be talking about how to, on Pinterest, on how to learn more about your customers and community. But first, Danielle, I want to know how you got started in social media and ended up kind of where you're at.
Well, when I graduated college with my degree in marketing, I actually went into a lot of different things first. I was the director of programs and events for a chamber of commerce. I was a realtor. I was a bartender. I had all those odd jobs. And every time the companies I was working for would always ask me to take on their social media, and beyond that, to teach others how to manage their own social media. And so when I moved to Maui, Hawaii, I was convinced it wouldn't happen again. I actually started nannying, and I was like, there's no way it's going to happen again. And lo and behold, it did. One of the mothers needed help with her social media. And at that point, I just said, why am I fighting it? I love social media. I love building communities, and let's do it full time.
Gotcha. So how did you get involved in Pinterest, and how long have you been kind of on that platform?
I actually started in Pinterest back when it was in beta mode, and I started with a personal account. And I got super excited. Actually, this is kind of funny. Those palettes and palette crafts and stuff?
Right.
So on my personal account, I started a board about palette crafts, and within a week I had 400 followers, and I got so excited. I got really into it, and I decided to open one for my business and see if I could gain any traction. And right away, I fell in love with it. And really, for my clients, it is the network that produces the most results.
Really? Now, when you say most results, do you mean leads and conversions? Or because we've had this conversation with people before that, it's great to have all those followers, but if stuff isn't conversion, it doesn't matter. Right?
So for us, the first conversion we always see is web traffic. So in Google Analytics, it's really easy for us to go and see how much traffic's coming from Pinterest. And I noticed that it skyrockets for us, for me and my clients, after a few months of putting some energy there. And beyond that, also converting to email subscribers based on the website traffic. So being able to convert people from just reading a blog to then signing up for an email newsletter or an opt-in gift.
Gotcha. Well, I know my friend Elisa Meredith, one of her clients, they get all, I think something like 80% of all their leads come from Pinterest, which is incredible for me. And so for me, it's a way to have, Pinterest has the longest term traffic for almost everybody. And so being able to set up a lead generation system and let it kind of sit there by itself for a while and have all that long-term traffic makes a lot of sense, at least for, time productivity for me, at least. So
absolutely.
Very cool. So, I think Pinterest isn't a place where I think a lot of companies first think about when they're doing research on their customers. So why do you think that is, and what are some tips that you would give for people to, look at where should I even start on Pinterest?
Love that question. So one of the reasons I think people don't think to look at Pinterest to do customer research is because they don't quite understand how people use Pinterest. When people use Pinterest, they're in essence building an entire profile that represents their personality. It represents all the spectrum of things that they love. And so for me, it's a natural tool to help figure out what your customers might be into in the complementary sense. So for example, if I do marketing, but somebody's also into gardening, I might do a blog post about the top 5 marketing tips gardeners get. And combining those two really unique angles is awesome for reaching those target customers. So part 2 of your question, how to get started?
Yeah. Well, there's a question here. She goes, you mentioned, this is LIL Inspiration says, you mentioned getting leads through Pinterest. How is that done? So I think a lot of people are thinking, how do I even start generating leads for Pinterest? Because I was just there doing like what you did and pinning stuff about palettes and things that are interesting. So, you can build a house out of palettes, but we want to go and see how you can get leads. And so kind of walk somebody through a kind of a general idea of doing that on Pinterest.
Awesome. I can walk you through what happened to me on a Saturday morning. So about 2.5 years ago, on a Saturday morning, I was inspired to make some little printable marketing worksheets for myself and my clients. And then I took those worksheets and I decided to give them away as a subscriber gift. So as a gift that people receive when they join my newsletter. And then I created a pinnable image that showed that those gifts, were available for my newsletter subscribers. Mm-hmm. I made a page of my website that said, here's some cool worksheets you can have, and here's where you can sign up to get them. Tell me where to send your worksheets. And then that led to the opt-in form where people would join my email list. Flash forward 2.5 years later, that pin has almost 3,000 repins.
Wow.
And it consistently gets about 100 new email subscribers joining my list every month.
Wow. Now, do you go and update that pin or is that just sitting out there continually generating traffic for you? Do you monitor it and make multiple pins, or how do you use that?
I monitor it regularly because about 1.5 years ago, I found out that Pinterest felt the source link was a spam link. And so I had to redirect it to my website instead of just to my opt-in form.
Right.
Because, Pinterest doesn't like those hard walls.
Right.
And I also monitor it regularly for spam comments. So I love Pinterest so much. When I see spammers leaving those, link dropping comments, I not only delete them, I report them.
Right.
Because I want to keep Pinterest as awesome as it is now.
Right.
And
exactly.
so I do regularly check it. And I actually went through and I update my worksheets. So sometimes I'll add a comment that says, new 2016 worksheets are now available.
Very cool. Another question I have, because and this is important to point out as well. You mentioned that they want you to go to an actual website and that has content on it. That's not straight to an opt-in form, and that's very important. It's also very important, like if you're going to promote, let's say you want to make a promoted pin on that opt-in, you need to take it to a actual page that has content on it and a lot of content on it, and then having maybe an opt-in at the bottom. You still don't want to take it. They'll reject that pin if you're trying to promote it for an opt-in form. So you got to be really careful on those promoted pins. So
definitely.
Well, do you ever experiment with having multiple, like you have that opt-in page that's sounds like it's doing awesome for you. Do you have multiple pins that pin to that same page, or you just have that one pin?
I got lucky and it's working. So where I like to not fix anything that's not broken.
Right.
So I did test 2 versions. I tested a really long version and a short version. And naturally, the longer one takes up more real estate on Pinterest and gets more attention. So it performed better. So I run with the one image since then. Gotcha.
Well, we have some questions I want to jump to before we keep going with some other questions I have for you. But Natural Mixolog, I don't even know if I'm saying that right. But she goes, she's struggling right now she's not getting the traffic on Pinterest. So what are some great, maybe some easy ideas that you could give our audience on creating traffic on Pinterest?
Beautiful question. Thank you. So when it comes to creating traffic on Pinterest, you always have to look one step before. So before you can have traffic, you need to make sure you're getting impressions, right? You need to make sure people are actually seeing your pin. So look in Pinterest Analytics, look at your impressions and look at your monthly viewers. If those numbers are high, but you're not getting clicks, start looking into it. Do you have a call to action in your pin description? Do you say, do you have a nice catchy headline and then say something like, oh, plus I love bonus tip number 6. So definitely check out the article. Something to really get people to click all the way through. The other way for me, if you're having trouble with impressions, are you a member of group boards? If you're not already a member of multiple group boards, then you should be jumping on Pingroupie, searching out your group boards and requesting to join them, because pinning to group boards will help skyrocket your impressions.
Very, very cool. I want to jump back and I want you to talk a little bit for some people who may not be really familiar with Pinterest analytics. One of the things, this is when we're talking about Pinterest analytics, we're talking about Pinterest for business. So your account is set up as a business account. That's very, very important. And if you don't have it as a business account, and I didn't have mine that way for a long time, it's super. Because I was scared to switch it because I had a bunch of followers and I didn't want to. I was so paranoid, but it's seamless. You just you pretty much click.
Oh, it's so easy.
Yeah, you just click a button and it switches over. And so, but the analytics and promoted pins and a lot of other cool things are only available if you have a Pinterest for business account. I think if you go to is it pinterest.business.com, I think is
other way around. Business.pinterest.com.
Yeah, to go set those business account up. So anyway, run them through kind of a basic overview of Pinterest analytics, because once you do have that business account, you have some awesome resources with those analytics that Pinterest does for you.
Yes. Pinterest analytics is my favorite thing. It's funny. As much as we love looking at Pinterest in our newsfeed, I've actually developed a habit where I will not check Pinterest without checking my analytics. It's fun to look at. So to access the analytics from the first place, you just, once you're logged into your Pinterest account, sorry about that, we go to analytics.pinterest.com. Easy peasy. When you land on your analytics homepage, you see 3 nice boxes. The first box gives you an overview of how your profile is doing, how many impressions it's getting, how many viewers it's getting, what are your top pins. This middle section talks about your audience. So how many viewers? So there's a difference between impressions, which is how many times your pin appears on the Pinterest screen, versus viewers, which is how many times somebody actually scrolled and saw your pin. And so the audience section of Pinterest analytics will let you know your viewers and your engaged people. So engaged people are those who are clicking on it. And then the third box of Pinterest analytics speaks to activity from your website. And in order to unlock that box, you have to verify your website with Pinterest. And once you do that, you can find out who's pinning content from your website, how often you're getting those pins, and how much of your content is getting seen by people on a daily basis. Very cool.
Very good. Very good overview. Let's say I'm a brand new to Pinterest. I'm a newbie. What stat should I be looking at kind of first? What's the most important when I'm trying to build my Pinterest account? I'm trying to get traffic to my website. What stat should I be tracking first?
So the very first thing that you need to be building momentum for Pinterest success is you need impressions. Impressions are how many times your pins are showing up on Pinterest. And then from impressions, you need viewers. So you need profile impressions first. Then you're going to look at the Your Audience section and build your viewers number. Once your viewers number is up, you're going to focus on building your engaged number, which is also under the Your Audience tab. Once you've got people interacting, once you've got their attention, then you're able to get them to click over to your website and start getting website traffic, which is the third box, activity from your website.
Very, very cool.
So yeah, just move right across that Pinterest screen from left to right and build those numbers and you'll get there.
Okay, well, hey, Ben has a great question. He goes, what's considered a high number of impressions? 100s, 1000s, 10,000s? So what would you say on that?
Well, I had my impressions up over 200,000. So, and I have about 2,800 followers. I think that what you should do is, instead of setting a baseline number across everything, consider it in relationship to your followers. So if you have under 1,000 followers, I'd say anything around the 50,000 impressions number that's a good start. When you get up into, where you have 2,000 or 2,500 followers, start reaching for the 6-digit impressions. So 100,000, 200,000. And then, Jeff, I'm very curious to know, with somebody with over 25,000 followers, I think you're up to, what, 30,000 now?
I haven't checked. I don't know. I'm not really. I haven't.
Do you know?
I'd have to go back and.
Do you know where your impressions are at?
I have to go back and look. I haven't checked that, and because that brings me to the other question, because I use I go in there and check it, but I'm a big Tailwind fan. I use Tailwind Analytics for my thing. And there was a question earlier about group boards. Like, what are group boards? Well, group boards are boards that you can open up to as many people as you want to actually pin to, and it shows up on your profile. You can limit those to just one person. Like I have a group board with Peg Fitzpatrick on its instant Instagram tips, and just her and I curate content to that. So they're very, very powerful. But they're also, if you join group boards using that website, it was called pingroupie.com, lets you search out great group boards that are specific to your topic. Then you have one more place to pin your pins. In fact, that's what we do. I run the Pinterest account for Social Media Examiner, and so we have very select few group boards that we pin to, but that's just one more place for people to see our content and to put them out there. And I mentioned Tailwind before, and I'm a big fan. They have a thing called, and I really kind of stunk at group boards for a long time because I would just forget about them, and anyway. But Tailwind has a thing called interval pinning, which lets me set up. I can list all my group boards out. I can say I want to pin today, but I want an interval of 1 day for all these group boards, so it doesn't just dump them all on group boards one at a time. And so it trickles them out slowly, and it has really boosted my group board thing. And I think Tailwind has a free trial, so it's tailwindapp.com if you guys want to check that out. But it's a great thing. It's really changed the way I do my group board. So, Danielle, what's your group board strategy? I know you're a big fan of them as well.
So my group board strategy, first, it starts all the way back when I'm picking which group boards to join. So when I visit Pingroupie, it defaults to showing your search results ordered by the number of collaborators, which means how many people are participating and pinning to that board. I switch that, and I order my search results by the number of repins. Because what we're looking for when we pin to group boards is not just the impression. We're looking for it to get the ripples, get the shares, get the repins. So I intentionally pick group boards that have a high number of contributors and a high number of repins. Then you request to join, and requesting to join is different depending on which group board you're a part of. Look for the group board description, and usually there's instructions in there. And then once I'm accepted, I have a whole nother strategy. So once I'm a member of a group board, I like to first take any pin that I'm adding to Pinterest. I'm a big fresh content pinner as opposed to repinner. Mm-hmm. I like to go out and search for articles and then add them to Pinterest. And so when I'm adding a new article to Pinterest, I pin it to one of my own boards first. Right. Then I wait 24 hours and I repin my own pin onto the group boards. That strategy is important because from then on, anybody on the group boards who's repinning your pin, they're going to get that little pop-up notice recommending that they follow your board.
Right. Very, very good strategy. The other thing is I want to mention with group boards is make sure you follow the rules. To be honest, the really good group boards are not open. They're select on who they let in. Mm-hmm. And so if you get in one of those group boards, follow the instructions. If they say they only want one pin a day and they want it not to be your content, or they want it to be, they want to have a mix of things, then follow those rules, because, or else you'll get booted out. And so, it's not anybody's fault but your own if you don't follow the rules of that group boards. But group boards are a great strategy, especially when you are getting started on Pinterest. It's a great way to get your account boosted really quickly if you do the right things and aren't spammy and share other people's content. So it's a great thing as well. A question here. There's another question about, do you promote your pins? Like, let's say you do have a great lead generation pin that you're doing to convert to like a newsletter subscription on your website. Do you promote that pin?
Up until now, I haven't had to invest. I've invested actually $17 since the beginning of my Pinterest account. And that was simply to test it. I wanted, as a marketer, I love to test things. So I wanted to see what they were all about. And so I have promoted pins, but I don't do it regularly. Although for my clients who have a product that they're trying to sell and have a whole lead generation funnel set up when somebody's on their email list, maybe they're getting an email sequence that sells their product. Once we have that whole email funnel set up and it's working, then I jump on the promoted pin bandwagon as part of my marketing campaigns. In fact, you mentioned earlier the 5,000 new leads in 90 days. And so I usually use a combination of Facebook ads and Pinterest ads to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I think you and I have the same strategy on that. I kind of think of Facebook ads as lighting the fire. They're really fast, you can get really targeted, you can get some stuff going. And then those promoted pins, for me, are long-term. I'm getting my content out on a bunch of boards where they'll be pinned later, and that traffic will long-term start to come in. So I think that's an awesome strategy that a lot of people don't do, but mixing those up, and a lot of people grab about Facebook, but man, you can target like crazy on Facebook, and it's really handy. So mixing up strategies between platforms can really benefit your clients and also your small business. So here's another question, and if you can answer this question, I'd love to know it myself. But she goes, Jeremy asks, how can we make our Pinterest pins more viral? That's a tough question.
It is a tough question. One of the biggest things I see is people are afraid to put a little personality into their pin descriptions. And I have found that if you go ahead and use the first person, like that pin that has nearly 3,000 repins, the pin description actually says something like, I love this. I just use these printables to plan out my year, and they worked great. So get fun with it, and then just make sure that you're also using keywords. If you haven't done any kind of keyword research for Pinterest, the very first thing you should do is take your keyword, go to Pinterest, and up in the search bar, type in your keyword. But before you hit enter, look at what other suggestions come up. What are those top 5 suggestions to your keyword? Do you have a board for each one of those suggestions? Are you using variations of those suggestions in your pin description? Because you do want to get your stuff to show up in search. And if you have a unique description there and unique keywords, you have to have them in your description to show up.
Yeah, very cool. So I think that's a huge point, that you really need to optimize not just your pin descriptions and titles, but also your board descriptions and titles, because those also rank in Google. In fact, I always say this, but one of my the board, if you search instant interest, instant Instagram tips, the board that I have with Peg Fitzpatrick, and it ranks in Google. It's there. So remember that when you're writing your board titles, that you're thinking, okay, what would be a good description? And you can go back and change those as well. So really optimize those titles and descriptions. So there's another question after the viral one. So where is it? I lost it. But what with your when you're diving in, trying to figure out what your audience wants? Because for me, when I'm pinning Pinterest pins, I'm always concerned about my audience. I'm looking to see, what does my audience want? I'm pinning content and repinning content that I think they will find value to. So I'm a small business. How do I find out? Do I do competitor research on Pinterest? How do I do that?
There's a lot of strategies, and looking at your competitors is a fantastic place to start. So one way to do that would just simply be to go to your competitor's Pinterest page and hit the pins button, the pins option on their profile, to see what their most recent activity is, see what they've been pinning. That way you can get an idea of where they're headed, or what strategy they're using right now. You can also quickly scan through for any pins that have a lot of repins on them and get an idea for, did they use a fantastic image with bright colors? Was it vertical, so it took up more real estate? Did it have text on the image so that it caught people's attention? But once you've kind of looked at your competitor, and now you're trying to incorporate your own voice, you can use Pinterest Analytics to do a little customer research. So if you go to analytics.pinterest.com, and then you go to the Your Audience tab, and within your audience, there's demographics and there's interests. So then switch over to the Interests tab, And what you're going to find on that screen is you're going to be able to see boards that have lots of your pins on them. So these are kind of like your top fans, the people who, when you pin something, they're ready to repin it. Go and click into their boards and then click over to their profiles. Who are they? Are they a business? Are they an individual? Are they using Pinterest to collect ideas for what kind of topics? Upcoming parties, gardening, natural remedies, cars, you know, kind of do a little profile. Write yourself a little profile as to who this person is. And then I like to go into to their pins and see what their most recent pins have been about. And when I go to write this week's blog post, I might write a blog post specifically for this Sally solopreneur, right, and what she's into right now. And that's a great way to get to know your customers. Very good. Very cool idea. One of the things that, you know, I think a lot of people do is when they first get started, they use the spray and pray concept. They're putting all sorts of things out there and praying something sticks. I don't have any problem, and I advocated a lot of showing different sides of your personality when you're pinning, but also to think about your audience. And we talked about that earlier. And what you just gave examples of is a great way to really hone in on your audience. And I don't pin anything that's is out of date. In fact, the first thing I do when I look at a repin, and this is the thing everybody needs to do, don't just click the repin. Make sure those links are going back to something that is real and not spam. I don't care how pretty the image is. If it's going back to statistics of 2002's flip phones, it's not going to be important to my audience. So even the big social media people do this. I see it all the time. They're just repinning something that looks great, but it's data that's worthless to my audience. So think of your audience every time that you are repinning. So what are your thoughts on repins? Oh, I so love that point that you just brought up. When I see a pin that is a scenario like that, it's kind of got this virility to it. It's getting a lot of repins. Their image is great, but the information is just totally out of date. That should be your light bulb moment. I can be the one who updates this information, makes a picture that's equally as beautiful, and put it out on Pinterest, and I can be the next one to go viral. So when you come across those pins that you're like, bummer, I really don't want to repin this, I actually end up pinning them onto a secret board. So as kind of blog content inspiration. And that can be a really powerful way to repin. The other thing I do when it comes to repins is I like to look through the boards it's been repinned onto and get ideas for other board names or like-minded content, because one of the toughest things that we have to do when we're trying to market our business is get inside the mind of our customer. We have to try to learn how to speak like them. So where I might call it email marketing, somebody else might call it a newsletter. And so I can look at their board and I can see what they're naming their board to get an idea for how my customer might speak or the word that they might be searching for. It's their language. Very, very important. And that's another thing. When you guys are naming boards, don't just put stuff like stuff I love. That gives me I mean, if you're doing a personal account, that's one thing, but if you're trying to do it for a business, don't do stuff like that. Make it sure it's, like we talked about earlier, that it's descriptive, has great board titles. I'm really interested to know what you think about scheduling tools. Do you use scheduling tools on for your Pinterest account, and what are your thoughts on that? I've tried a few. So I've tried Traffic Walker, Tailwind, and Buffer. And I like them. They're incredibly handy. However, I am a Pinterest addict and I love Pinterest. So if I have time, I'd rather just go pin live. Right. It also gives me the opportunity to kind of see what's trending in the moment. So yes, I like using scheduling tools. I love the interval scheduling with Tailwind. That was like the most beautiful feature. It was like, kid on Christmas morning when I saw that one. So so I love it. I love scheduling. I love the interviewable scheduling. Just want you can't pull me away from Pinterest. I like it too much.
Well, see, I usually do my organic stuff in the morning and the afternoon, and then I schedule stuff through the day. Just because, and I usually schedule stuff that I find fun throughout the day to trickle it out. But yeah, I think they're great. The other question I have: do you repin more? Let's say you find a great article for somebody else. It's not your content. Do you repin that more than once or to multiple group boards, or do you just do it one time for your audience, or what is your strategy on that?
Nope, I repin it more than once. I definitely do. And I do that because I firmly believe in providing value to the customer. And if I pin it tomorrow morning, Friday morning, and I only pin it once, the folks who are on Pinterest on Saturday morning probably won't see it. So I'm likely to then repin that pin onto a group board Saturday morning. And beyond that, I actually have one board that I call my best of business board. And the pins that I add to that board actually get emailed out as a weekly newsletter on Tuesday mornings. So it gets them a huge pop of exposure on Tuesday mornings when everybody gets that email with these new pins. And so in that sense, I use that board to promote any content that I would give the gold star to.
Very, very cool. We had some questions about which tools to use to schedule Pinterest. And Kim Vidge, thank you so much, Kim, for putting those on there. There's Tailwind Buffer, Viral Tag, Board Booster are a few. Thanks, Kim, for jumping in there and answering those questions for us. I have a question for you. One of the things what is your favorite call to action that you use on Pinterest? Is there one that you like more than others?
Good question. My favorite call to action is actually more of like an open hook. So I like to leave that open-ended bit of mystery. So if I'm reading an article that is the 10 best tips for organizing your office, then my call to action is, I love tip number 6. So you should, go click through to find out what it is.
Very cool.
I think those are fun.
Yeah, I did the same thing when I would share on a different network to drive them back to my Pinterest account. I would say, here are the tips, 1, 2, 3. There's 6 more. You need to go check them out. So that's a great way to do that. So, okay, here's kind of what we're kind of winding down towards the end, and I wanted to ask you a couple more questions. Thanks so much. You guys have asked some great questions in the comments, and Danielle, we're going to have you on again because I know I want to pick your brain a lot more. So, but let's say I have a boss who is a little hesitant on this social media / Pinterest thing. Can I do a proof of concept or show him what the ROI will be for this Pinterest thing if we go down that road?
Awesome question. Okay, so here's what you can do. Ask your boss for about 1 hour a week for 30 days. That you can dedicate to Pinterest. A lot of bosses will find that fairly reasonable. And then first step, go into Google Analytics, find the most popular page of that website, the one that's getting the most hits, that's showing up the most. Make sure that idea, it's usually a blog article. So check to make sure that blog article has a nice, beautiful vertical image on it, that it's pinnable. If it doesn't, add one. And then pin that image. Start requesting to join group boards in week 1. Spend your first hour just building 10 boards with 4 pins each so your profile looks nice, and then request to join group boards for the rest of that hour. Take that one amazing article with that one amazing image, and once it's been pinned to your board, repin it onto a different group board every day for 10 days or however many group boards you're a member of. Then make sure that you're going back into your Google Analytics and looking to see, is this pin driving traffic? And what'll happen is once you've been repinning onto a group board and it's gotten a couple pops of exposure, you will see traffic is coming to that blog article from Pinterest. And that should be what you need to hand your boss total proof of concept that, hey, it took the system 30 days to get it into action, but now we're seeing, 10% of our web traffic to that page is coming from Pinterest.
Very, very cool. That's very important. Social media is not a magic button that you just press that it magically happens. It does take work, but that example that you gave is just perfect. And if you guys are struggling with, getting started, or your boss, you need to go rewind that and listen to what Danielle said, because it's a great way to show to your boss and to other people that, yes, this stuff actually works. So, Danielle, I always ask this for my guests: where can we find out about you and your services? Where's the best place to find you?
Best place to start is on my website, which is mmmsocialmedia.com. And from there, come find me on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope. I'm out there at mmmsocialmedia.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And as for always, we'd love for you guys to go over to manlypinteresttips.com, click on the sidebar, and subscribe to our email community so you'll never miss one of the great guests we have, like we had with Danielle today, because at manlypinteresttips.com, we're always adding testosterone one pin at a time. See you next time, everyone. Thanks for watching. All right. We are at Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. You sound awesome.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Doing good. Your hair looks great. I see you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I spent a lot of time. The last 45 minutes was all hair and makeup.
Very cool. Oh, there's Ralph. Hey, Ralph.
Now it's a show.
I don't have any questions. I'm just calling public service thing. Mike, new Star Wars trailer. You make it okay? Everything's good? Cardiovascular system still working?
Yeah, needed oxygen for a while, but I'm good.
All right, good. How many times did you watch it already?
The counter broke.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the answer to that is a lot.
Yeah.
The little infinity sign now, so I don't even know.
Yeah.
Great job, everyone. Danielle, nice meeting you. Great show.
Thanks, Ralph. See you later.
Bye, Ralph.
So, yeah, did you have a Pinterest question, Mike, or are you just here to...
I don't. I have no Pinterest questions.
Now, Mike has a great account. I just want to tell you that he has a great account as Pinterest as well. So he pins a lot of stuff from SiteSell, which is a great a product and service. So you need to check out Mike. But what is your strategy? How much do you pin a day, Mike? I want to know.
I try to keep it down to like 2 to 3 pins a day.
Okay.
I don't do a lot of pinning, and I try to balance like work/professional stuff with personal stuff, which I actually is a thing that I don't think you really got into, Danielle, but I think we'd all agree is very important. That when at least when you're talking about your personal profile on Pinterest, there is that mix of personal interest, personal style, personal topics with your blog posts and whatever it is that you're talking about at work, right? So I'll repin something that's social media or content marketing, and then I mix in great travel pictures that I find, or one of my favorite tips from you, Jeff, is something for my daughters, a recipe or a gift or a project or whatever it is that caught my eye, and put that on the For Cadence board or the For Emily board, whatever makes sense.
Very cool. Hey, Ross, how are you doing?
What is up, party people in the house? What's up, Danielle? Mike?
Hey, Ross.
You got a bad echo there, Ross, at least on my end. So.
Oh, do I?
Oh, you're better now.
I don't think that's me. I got my headphone on.
Oh, it's probably Mike. He always breaks something.
No, Mike. Why are you throwing me under the bus, Mike, with the echo?
I broke Danielle's audio.
He runs over you twice, actually.
So, Ross, I know you're on Pinterest because I've had you on the show before. In fact, I mentioned you. I just did my social media success summit, and you should see it. There's people tweeted out the screenshot of our show together. So,
sweet.
You owe me money.
There it is. So, I owe you. I will pluck a few golden beer hairs and send them to you.
So what's your
see, this is just like old school planting, right? You have to you blend up. What is that called when they blend the two vines together? It's grafting. That's right. We have to graft the power of the beard.
I'm not getting my face that close to yours. I'm sorry.
Admit it. You know it might make the difference. It's all about optimization.
So Ross, what's your Pinterest strategy? What do you do for Pinterest? I know you're increasing your kind of frequency on there. So what is your strategy?
Yeah. And Mike brings up, he's not right there. He's over there. I was just playing with you. Look, he brings up a great point, which is, and actually I tweeted this out. There was a Twitter chat, and it was talking about Pinterest. I can't remember which. Maybe it was Love for Social. I'm not sure. But they were talking about Pinterest. If not, disregard that reference. So it's a 404 bad reference if it's not real. But they were talking about, and I was like, look, do you use Pinterest for personal? Do you use it for professional? And that's a very important piece of the pie, because I actually think that Pinterest, in a way, allows you like no other network to do both and not have one kind of impede on the other or take away from the other. I think it actually, I love, just the way it's set up structurally with the boards and everything. It's like, cool. You want to see someone's cupcake recipe, it's there, but it's not really bugging you. And you can get straight to the business the way it's laid out if you want to get right to their business or whatever kind of narrow focus of their business is. And that also, think about that compared to like Twitter. At Twitter, you're like, you get all of me. I'm talking cloud. You don't care. I don't care. That's what you're getting. And, that's what I love about Pinterest. And it seems like such a obvious thing, but it's actually really not set up that way as well on all other social platforms. So I dig in, and for me, it's that blend of personal. It's the things I find sexy, and that's not bikini stuff. That's like design stuff, and like, all this kind of, it could be craft beers. I find those sexy, but it's stuff that I find that's cool, technology, social, marketing, all of that stuff. And so you can really slice that out, and get to know me almost in an Instagram-ish way, but at the same time, pull in all of that kind of business stuff where it's like, no, this is cool. So I love it. I enjoy using it. I think you got to get more fresh content. I have one client right now where I feel like, I don't know if, and now you're the man to ask. But has anyone seen their numbers? Is there any algorithm shifts? Because I have a client, and I narrowed it down to the fact that I saw our daily impressions going down and down, and yet we were optimizing boards, moving them around, doing all these different things. And we were doing a lot of the similar things. And I was like, did something shift a couple of months ago with that? Because I feel like there's been kind of a squeeze. And my theory was that they're rewarding more user-generated content versus repinned content. And I think that's been in general, but I've seen it actually shift. And a lot of you guys probably do user-generated, fresh content. So maybe you didn't see it as much, but we did a lot of repinned content. And I felt like it's been going like...
Well, I can't see anymore. Can anybody else see? No.
I was just waiting for him to stop to say something.
Ross, I can't see.
I will never stop.
Yeah, you're gone. Can you hop out and maybe come?
Hashtag no let up.
Because I can't see you, and it's like I'm talking to a black nothingness. But I mean, you sounded beautiful. But I have not seen that decline myself. But I don't know. I do a mix, so it wouldn't show up as much for me. If I see a good article, I try to pin from that website because I want to give them a little bit more juice, and I think Pinterest likes that. And so I think they like me see pinning organically from something, and it shows up better in the feed. I'm not 100% on that, but Ahology has a great free study to do that. And so I think that there you are. You're back and beautiful.
All right. They're like, oh.
Oh, and Kim says active engage is always a win for helping your account. So yes, the more you're on Pinterest, I mean, you can't just show up once a month and expect your account to grow. It just doesn't happen that way. So
right. And the other thing is, if you're repinning a pin, and so you're creating a couple of duplicates of it, and it never took off in the first place, so it never had virility in the first place, then all those repins don't have as much momentum behind them. So I'm not sure if that gives any insight to that, but.
Yeah, maybe you're saying that it could be strategically tied to the specific content that we're already repinning, right?
Exactly what I'm saying.
And what tools do you suggest for finding the most wonderful pins?
Pinterest Analytics is my favorite.
Yeah. And I use Tailwind to see what for me, especially what boards are doing well. And so that makes me want to, if I see like my geek board is doing well or my blogging board is doing really well, then I want to add more content to that because that's telling me that's what my audience wants. And that's what we mentioned before is, think about your audience. And Mike does that really well with his blogging. He knows what he knows what his audience wants, and he gives it to them. So
I follow Jeff C's boards.
Well, yeah, but you have a good point. We were talking earlier that you were using stuff personally. I knew you were getting ready to go to Hawaii because I saw your pins were like the best places to go to Hawaii. Here's what to do, and that was fine. And so,
and then he can follow your creepy stalker board.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's all the repins of shots of him just walking, handing an envelope somewhere, checking at the desk. Like, whoa.
Exactly. So here's a question we have: can you jazz up or give descriptions to rich pins? Danielle, what do you think about that?
Oh yeah. Definitely. So if you are just using the rich pin headline in your pin description won't even show if it's a duplicate of the headline. And that is a pet peeve of mine. I always want to see the pin description that gives me something else, a little more info. So highly recommend jazzing up the actual pin description on any rich pins. Start talking in the first person. Say what you thought of the article. Give it personality. That's what Pinterest is about.
Gotcha. Kim says, yeah, a virtual field trip does allow followers to see the personal side of you and make your business more approachable in theory. Yes. Descriptions, do you mention people in descriptions? Because I do that a lot of times. Like when you're going to be on my show, I'll say, hey, and so that way, when people repin my pins, you get a notification in Pinterest that somebody did that. And so I'm a big fan of, like you mentioned in Twitter, is mentioning people on in my descriptions as well. So do you do that kind of stuff too, Danielle? Okay.
I love she glitched a little bit. And
I was like,
it became like a Max Headroom. Like, yeah.
I hope she was listening. Mike, you're a copywriter. I know you do a lot of good copywriting. Somebody who's getting started to writing descriptions.
There's no way I'm the only one with good internet.
Are you glitched up?
Oh my.
I think she's delayed behind us.
All three of you guys, yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Though. Go for it.
Mike, what are some advice for people for copywriting?
Yeah, and it's interesting because that's going to be a really unique and very specific to the business. But I guess one thing I would say is, like Danielle said, you're going to want to focus on a keyword for search, but try to be as natural and organic as you can in how you insert that keyword. Don't repeat it over and over again. Try to use it once. Try to focus on just one keyword and wrap around that the kind of language and imagery that's going to draw somebody in and make them actually want to not just look at the pin, but actually click through and find out more. Because that's really the point. It's not just eyeballs on that image, right? It's people clicking through and consuming the rest of the content, because presumably there's more to it. You pinned a checklist, but then your article expands on that, and then there's a opt-in to learn more. So you need them to click through. So you really need to entice them with, like Daniel said, I love tip number 6 or whatever it is that's going to make them want to read more.
Gotcha. And I know you're a blogger, and so that's your big thing, Mike. He's probably, you can't see his hands because he's writing actually another blog post behind the screens. That's right. So I'm interested in, I use a plugin. I use Social Warfare because it gives me, it selects my pin when people do the social share button. But I know you don't use that on your site. Do you have an optimal place where you're putting an image that you want to get pinned for Pinterest? Is there a best place to put that on your blog?
No, because that's the one area where I'm really handicapped, because I use Drupal as my site platform because I happen to know Drupal really well. So I can't use Social Warfare. Those jerks won't make a Drupal version of their plugin, and you can tell them I said that. So it's for WordPress only. And when we use that on the Site Sell blog, which is great, because like you said, it does provide us a very specific dedicated field for a Pinterest-sized graphic. Now on Drupal, there are tricks to getting around that. You can create a hidden field, where you can put a graph inside the body text and, put some little CSS magic to display none and hide it. Because on my site, the graphic that works best is a landscape, not a portrait.
Right.
the landscape images look the best on the actual blog post. And that's what I'm most concerned with, because, that's got to be for everybody, right? No matter how they're getting to my blog post. So I don't typically make Pinterest-sized graphics because I don't have good use for them. I don't have a good place to put them. On my most important post, like the blog promotionology post that I made last month, I made Pinterest-sized graphics for that.
Right.
But for most of my posts, that's an area where I'm lacking, and because I don't have an easy way to make that the default pinnable image for everybody else.
Yes, Danielle, go ahead. I know you have.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, Mike, have you ever tried making the pinnable image, uploading it to Pinterest, making the source link so it goes to that blog post, and then just taking the URL to that pin and somewhere in your blog writing, if you want to pin that, pin it here. That's a hot link to your pin with the uploaded image. Oh. So the image actually never lives on your site, but you get the image on Pinterest.
Yeah, I'll have to try that. I do that with Google+. Actually, on every Google Plus share, the very first comment is from me, and it's a pin it here link, and it's a direct link to the pinnable image. And I get more pins from that, which is great. I hadn't thought about creating a Pinterest image and then linking to that image from within the blog post. So I'll definitely try that. Oh, yeah.
So, Danielle, do you have a place that you like to put your, I can't remember on your website where you put your pinnable image, but do you have a place that you like to put that so people will click on it? Or what's your call to action to get them from your website to Pinterest?
I actually save it for the bottom of my post, because for me, if somebody's read all the way to the bottom, they're the captivated audience. They're very interested in the content. And so the last line of my blog post says, if you found this valuable and you want to save it for later, pin it here. It's got the pinnable image right on the bottom, plus the words pin it here linked to my original pin that they can simply repin.
Very cool. I use it, pin it for later, quite a bit. I actually do that on Facebook sometimes. I do it on my pins, on my blog posts. So, yeah, pin it for later is a great call to action. Well, we are going to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for jumping in. Do you guys have any more questions or comments or threats for me? Just leave them in the comments there. But I appreciate you guys coming in. This is awesome. Thanks for all my live viewers. Thanks for Ross for keeping it real down there at the bottom of the screen. Thanks everybody for watching us, and we will do this again shortly. Thanks everybody. Talk to you later.